Okay guys, so we're out here to test out the Fishband GH100. And to be honest, this is the second time I'm filming this. The first time I filmed this video was last weekend, the day after I shot the unboxing and tabletop review of this reel. But I didn't like the way that footage turned out. It was really windy, and you could barely see where the lures were landing. Sorry, I'm kind of distracted. I'm seeing a bass chase fish around here. It's a pretty good size one too. And basically I decided to do a redo for you guys, and I've pre-selected out the lures I'm going to throw, and we're going to see how well this thing throws from almost a 1/8 of an ounce lure down to a true 1/16 ounce. I've got it mounted on the Ace Hawk rod with ultralight tip, 4-pound mono. Okay, so I'm pretty surprised at how popular the unboxing video is of this reel, and that's another reason why I wanted to redo the on the water portion of this video, because I want to answer some of the questions that I saw in the comment section. Now, the first question I'm going to answer is there a drag clicker on this reel? And the answer is no. So I got the drag tightened all the way down. There is no drag clicker. So they pretty much copied everything except for that drag clicker. So there you go. Now, the second thing I wanted to address was, I hope people don't think that this thing is going to outcast, you know, the Aldebaran or the REVO. The best I can hope for this particular reel is casting as well as the Scorpion BFS. And I brought that reel along with me today. Hopefully we'll have some kind of impromptu cast battle. But yeah, just wanted to address a couple of things before we get started. And the first lure we're going to start off with is the Keitech Easy Shiner 3-inch that's got a 132nd ounce jig head. So on the scale, this thing weighed a total of 3.2 grams, so right under 1/8. So I'm going to set my spool tension to just minimize the side-to-side play. So what I'm going to do, holy crap, a lot of activity, is I'm going to show you guys how this thing casts with the minimal brake setting on each lure. First, I'm going to show you how strong these brakes are. So I'm going to turn the brakes all the way up to 5. Okay, so that went out probably like 30 foot tops. And it kind of pulled the lure off to the left a little bit, but the casting is super quiet and super smooth. It is quieter than the Aldebaran. I believe it's quieter than Scorpion as well. But it handles 3.2 grams super easy. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to back these brakes down as low as they'll go and show you how far it casts this lure. Okay guys, so the lowest I could go is probably 1.2 or down to 1 and then plus 2 clicks. So the lowest brake setting on this reel is 0, and I was able to go down to 1 plus 2 clicks, and let me show you the distance. Did you see that? Hopefully you guys can see where that landed. That probably went out there close to 100 foot. Let's do one more. I think I need to go up 1 click. So yeah, this thing easily casts a 1/8 ounce lure with 0 effort. Let's do a sidearm. So I had a couple of fluffs there on the spool, so all I do is just turn it up 1 click, and let's see if it solves that fluff up. Fluff up solved. So these brakes are ridiculously strong. And for bait finesse, that is a good thing. So yeah, there we go. That's the cast distance you get with a roughly 1/8 ounce lure. I'm gonna show you guys one more cast. So yeah, it's going out there probably close to 100 foot in my estimation. So let's go down to a lure that's about 2.2 or 2.3 grams. Okay guys, so I've tied on a little floating jerk bait. I forget the brand, but it's only 2.3 grams on the scale that I've weighed. And it doesn't have any kind of internal weights, so this thing kind of casts awkward. But let me show you what it does on maximum brake setting. So the brakes are really strong. It pulls the lure off to the left there. Yep, overhead. Brakes are really strong. You're probably looking at probably 30 foot or less, consistently hitting that same spot. So let me back these brakes down and show you how far it can cast this awkward casting, super light, little hard plastic. Okay fellas, so the lowest I could go for this particular lure was 2 on the brake dial. Let me show you how far it casts now. Pow. So that's going probably at least 70 feet in my estimation. At least 70 foot, maybe close to 75 foot. Let's try again. That one was a little shorter. Okay, had a blow up, but the lure flew way out there. So I'm going to turn the brakes up 1 click, but that is going probably at least 70 foot in my estimation, probably close to 75. So I'm thinking this thing should be able to outcast that Soranoia XF50, at least when the Soranoia has a full spool. Okay, let's try again. There you go. So there we go. That's how far this thing is casting, a 2.3 gram floating little minnow that has no internal weights to aid in casting. And let's try on an even lighter lure now. Okay guys, so the next lure is a 2 gram crappie jig. And I'm gonna jack these brakes up to maximum. Let's see how far this casts. This 2 gram jig on max brakes. Okay, that was bad. It jerked that jig way off to the left. That was really bad. Okay, let me try to do it again. Okay, I really adjusted my release point and it still jerked that jig way off to the left. These brakes are ridiculously strong. Okay, so let's back these brakes down and see how low I can go and how far this thing will cast this 2 gram jig. Okay guys, so the lowest I could go with this crappie jig was in between 1 and 2, so probably 1.5. So let me show you the results. Pow, it was firing that cast out probably close to 80 to 90 foot in my estimation. Now, of course, the jig did gain some weight while it was wet. But yeah, it is firing this 2 gram jig out there with 0 effort. Let's try an overhead. So I feel like I can go even lower on the brakes. Let's go down one click. Okay, so there you see that going down one click caused it to overrun. Let me pick this out. Okay, so the great thing about this GH100 over a Shimano bait finesse is that now that I know that the brakes were set too low, all I got to do is just do one click up and that's it. I'm done. Overrun solved. So with Shimano, since it doesn't have the click on the brake dial, you kind of gotta mess with it. You gotta turn it over on the side and you kind of gotta mess with it and make sure you don't put too much brake. But with this and its clicking system on the brake dial, it's just one click, two clicks, up or down, and that's it. Pow. Firing that cast out there. Okay, so the last and lightest lure we're going to throw today is this super light little jerk bait that's roughly 1.7 to 1.8 grams. And I don't know if it has a weight transfer system or not, but this is probably much lighter than most people will ever throw, even when fishing bait finesse. So let's see how it does. This is going to be the true test, in my opinion. Okay, so that's, of course, with the brakes turned to maximum. Okay, it's probably not even hitting 30 feet. Of course, the lure is jerking off to the side. But zero overrun, zero spool control. I mean, I don't even have to stop it with my thumb. The brakes are so strong. Okay, so let's turn them down and see how low we can go and see how far it can cast. Okay guys, so the lowest I could go was about 1.5. And let me show you the distance now. That went out there probably at least 70 foot, zero spool control issues. Now granted, this does have a tiny snap swivel that probably adds, I don't know, 1/10 of a gram to the overall weight. But sidearm, overhead, no problem with this reel. That was the weakness of the Hybo Steed, was that the brakes were so weak. It didn't like overhead casts because I believe overhead casts generate more spool speed than sidearm. And even with the sidearm cast, if you whipped it out there too hard, it just overpowered those magnetic brakes. But there you go. I might even be able to go down one click, it seems like. Now the clicks on this brake dial are very positive feeling. It's not mushy. Oh. Yep, that was a little too low. But yeah, the clicks on the brake dial are really positive feeling. Now there is some slop when you get down towards the lowest and highest brake settings, but when you're out there just adjusting with your thumb, it feels really, really nice. Shimano needs to implement that in their next magnetic brake system, like the CHRONARCH. Okay, so brakes too low. All I got to do is take my thumb and click one time. Problem solved. That's awesome. So this is definitely a bait finesse reel, no doubt about it. It palms very comfortably. Now it feels kind of big. Now I had the Scorpion on a rod last night. I was comparing the two, and of course this thing it's gonna palm a lot bigger, but some of you guys don't care about that. For 60 bucks I can live with a slightly bigger reel. Of course this is lighter than the Scorpion 2. Okay guys, there we go. Fishband GH100. Totally legit for all you guys who are wondering and you are kind of on the fence about pulling the trigger. I would say go ahead and do it. And now I'm going to see if I can arrange some kind of impromptu cast battle against the XF50 and the Scorpion. So apparently a lot of you knuckleheads out there couldn't wait until this video was released and you went ahead and ordered this reel. So now apparently it is sold out. So for all you guys who are emailing me and commenting that you can't find this reel anymore, that it's no longer available, just be patient. They will restock these reels. If not at the seller that I bought it from, then definitely other sellers will start stocking these reels again. So just keep checking every few days on AliExpress and you eventually will find this reel and you eventually will be able to get your hands on one. So when you finally do get your hands on one of these reels, as you can see by the on the water footage, what you're going to get is a really awesome performing, legitimate bait finesse reel that can cast bait finesse lures with ease. So as you can see, the highest weight lure that I casted was not even 1/8 of an ounce, and the lowest weight lure I casted was about 1/16 of an ounce, and it handled all those lures easily and casted them a really good distance. Now granted, the rod had a lot to do with that, but the reel itself also had a lot to do with that, and I credit these really strong brakes. Now to copy the best magnetic bait finesse brake system in the world is one thing, but if you use weak magnets, then it's not going to matter. And I can happily say that these brakes and these magnets are really strong. Now to illustrate that point, I'm going to bring out the much more expensive Aldebaran, and even when using reels like the Aldebaran and especially that REVO LTX, when you're casting 2 gram lures, you kind of have to crank the brakes up on these reels to their near maximum setting. But with the GH100, the lowest I had to go, or I should say the highest I had to go, was somewhere around the middle of the dial, so I had plenty of brake left. That's just how strong these brakes are. And another thing I noticed was just how smooth and quiet this thing casted. It reminded me of the first time I ever casted a DAIWA T-Wing system reel, and the fact that the only thing I could hear was the line going through the rod guides. That's how quiet and smooth this reel casted. But is it the ultimate budget bait finesse reel out of China? So earlier today, I went ahead and did an impromptu cast battle between the GH100 and the XF50 to find out who really cast bait finesse lures the farthest. And I used 2 lures. And I'm going to show you the weights on these lures. Now the first lure is around 3 grams, this crappie magnet. Well, apparently it's only about 2.8 grams. And the second lure was another crappie magnet that's around 2 grams. So 2 grams right on the money. So that way we can get a more complete picture of how these reels cast bait finesse lures. And just for fun, I also included the Scorpion BFS, which is the cheapest Shimano bait finesse reel. Now I decided to use the Major Craft Valky 6'9" ultralight, and I didn't want to use the Ace Hawk because I wanted to use a rod that I could cast with 2 hands because I think that two-handed casting is more consistent. So let's get to that footage. "63 feet 1 inch. "62 feet 8 inches. "64 feet 6 inches. "50 feet 6 inches. "51 feet 5 inches. "53 feet 4 inches. "77 feet 5 inches. "77 feet 8 inches. "81 feet 4 inches. "65 feet 4 inches. "68 feet 6 inches. "65 feet even. "78 feet 5 inches. "78 feet 8 inches. "77 feet 10 inches. "62 feet even. "60 feet 3 inches. "64 feet 1 inch. Go. So we had some really interesting results, and let's get to them. Now let's get started with the 3-gram lure, or officially 2.8 grams it turns out. And no surprise, third place goes to the XF50, and this thing averaged 63.41 feet. So very respectable, very doable for a 3-gram lure for bait finesse. Now we have a shock second place result here, and that's going to go to the GH100. This thing averaged 78.3 feet with the 3-gram lure. And I say it's a shock result because I swear on the water, this thing looked like it was casting farther than the Scorpion. But that leaves the winner, and just barely, and that's the Scorpion BFS with an average of 78.8 feet. So it barely beats out the GH100 by like half a foot. But in the battle of the two budget bait finesse reels, the GH100 absolutely destroyed the XF50 by over 15 foot or a 5-yard average. So that may not sound like a lot, but when you're casting really light lures, that's a long way. That is a big gap. And you know, casting an extra 15 foot with a tiny lure is definitely going to get you more fish. So now let's get to the results of the more important lure in my opinion. That's the 2-gram lure. And no surprise, coming in third place is going to be the XF50 with an average of 51.63 feet. And second place was a little bit more decisive this time, and that's going to the GH100. This thing averaged 62.11 feet. And taking the clear win was the Scorpion with an average of 66.27 feet. And I attribute that to the fact that it seemed like the Scorpion spool took a little bit less inertia to get the spool moving than the GH100 for that 2-gram lure. Okay, so no big surprise, the Scorpion beat out these two Chinese reels, as well it should have in my opinion, because this is a $250 reel versus some, you know, sub $60 reels. So at this point, we're going to remove the Scorpion because in all actuality, anyone in the market to spend $250 for a bait finesse reel is not going to be looking at either of those two. So what appears in the battle of the two budget bait finesse reels, the Fishband easily beats out the XF50. But let me tell you what else happened out there. Now when trying to set up the GH100, I blew the spool up to the point where I couldn't pick the backlash out. I had to cut it out. And unfortunately, I didn't have any spare line with me. And I didn't want to go home and restring and waste all that time. So what I did was I tested the XF50 first. And then I spooled line directly from the XF50 onto the GH100. So a full GH100 spool taken off of an XF50 leaves us with a spool that looks like this. So I would say that's probably not even halfway full. So I decided to go ahead and retest the XF50 because I get a lot of emails about this reel asking me, you know, can this thing outcast this reel? You know, is it better than that reel? And I always tell these guys, fill the spool not even halfway on this XF50 and it'll really wake the reel up. So being the most thorough tackle tester on YouTube, I retested this XF50 with less than half the line filled, and let's look at those results. "71 feet 11 inches. "72 feet 2 inches. "77 feet 2 inches. "66 feet 11 inches. "65 feet 7 inches. 63 feet 7 inches. So when I retested the XF50 with the 3-gram lure, the results went from 63.41 foot with the full spool to 73.75 foot with the half spool. So it gained over 10 foot, which is a lot in bait finesse, but it still wasn't able to beat out the GH100, which averaged the 78.3 foot. But here's the really big surprise. When throwing the 2-gram lure, the XF50 with the half spool jumped from 51.63 feet to 65.36 foot average. And that actually beats out the GH100, which averaged 62.11 foot. So it beat it by over a yard. So that's really, really strange, and I don't know what happened out there, but it looks like when you fill the spool not even halfway on the XF50, it can cast as good as the GH100. So for all you guys who have one of these reels and you're wondering how its casting ability is against this new upstart, then there you go. So casting ability aside, overall, which one is the better reel in my opinion? And let's sum it up this way. The only thing that the XF50 has over the GH100 is going to be the size and the palming. So as you can see, the GH100 is a little bit bigger, but it seems to sit higher on the reel seat than the XF50. Trying to line that up. The XF50 definitely palms better in my opinion, but the GH100 is lighter, and you can tell. But other than that, that is the only advantage the XF50 is going to have over this GH100. The GH100 is a lot better built, a lot more refined, feels more solid, it's smoother. I think the brakes are better. In fact, this XF50, I didn't realize how cheap it felt until I, fished it back to back against the GH100 and the Scorpion. I didn't realize how many creaks and little sounds it made when the frame flexes, and for some reason the thumb bar has developed a little bit of slop when it's depressed that I don't remember it being there. And the funny thing is, I've rarely fished this reel. This reel has not been used much at all. I think when I first got it, I caught several small trout on it, but other than that, it's just been sitting at home and participating in cast battles. So will the GH100 keep its solid, more refined feel after some use? I don't know, but we're gonna find out, because I'm gonna take this thing out fishing and see how it handles some fish. Now, in all honesty, it did catch a couple of dinks last weekend, but I want to see how it feels against some bigger fish. And of course, to do that, we're gonna have to take it fishing. But as it stands, looks like the ultimate budget bait finesse reel is going to be the Fishband GH100. Okay guys, thanks a lot.